Nightmare. The screams of Nami, Keiko, and Kumi echo through the hospital as they desperately run away from it. On a hot and humid night at the end of summer in 2018, 18-year-old Nami and her friends decide to go to a liver test to make memories of their summer vacation. Nami did not agree to go, but she could not refuse her friend's invitation. Their destination is an abandoned hospital that was closed in 1990, which is rumored in the area. The abandoned hospital was rumored to be haunted by the spirits of deceased patients. Nami's two friends were Keiko, who was very curious, and Kumi, who had a cheerful disposition. The girls decided to bring a flashlight, a security buzzer, and a good luck charm to prepare for the test of courage. As night fell, Nami and her friends met at the station near the abandoned hospital and headed for their destination. The air was heavy and humid. Along the way, the girls talked about trivial matters to ease each other's tension, but gradually their conversation tended to break off. Nami was walking in terror as the sound of footsteps on the night road overlapped with her own heartbeat. She was determined to participate in the liver test for the sake of her friends while being strong, but deep down inside she regretted it. On her way to her destination, she stared at the darkness around her, and the eeriness of the place made her hair stand on end. Finally, the girls arrived at an abandoned hospital. The place was surrounded by old buildings and seemed to float in a desolate forest. Around the hospital, trees lined the streets, swallowed by darkness, making eerie sounds whenever the wind blew. The hospital, faintly lit by moonlight, was so dilapidated that it was hard to imagine how vibrant it had once been. Nami couldn't stop shaking as she passed through the hospital gates. Her legs would not move forward. Keiko and Kumi, too, began to walk with their smiles fading and their mouths shut. The corridor through which they proceeded, with paint sometimes peeling from the walls due to age and deterioration, and the ceiling swollen white from the humidity, seemed to bear witness to the hospital's past. Inside the abandoned hospital, the air was damp and dimly lit by the moon. Every time Nami and the others' flashlights illuminate the darkness of the abandoned hospital, a shadow is projected on the wall. Each time the shadows moved erratically, the girls' fear increased. Suddenly, an eerie noise echoes down the hallway. Nami and Kumi hold onto Keiko's and Kumi's hands in panic, and the three of them slowly turn their flashlights in the direction of the noise, trying to catch their breath. Kumi musters up the courage to say, "Maybe it was just my imagination," Kumi mumbled in an attempt to reassure them. Nami and Keiko nodded, but their fear only deepened. As Nami and her friends moved deeper into the basement of the abandoned hospital, strange phenomena began to occur. "This place looks like a mortuary," said Nami and Keiko. The three looked at each other and slowly opened the door, and suddenly a cold wind blew through. In the basement of the hospital, where the wind should never blow, it passed between the three of them and the door at the end of the corridor silently closed. They hear what sounds like a child crying in the distance, perhaps the sound of the wind. Nami was frightened, but tried to cheer Keiko and Kumi up by saying, "It's okay, it's probably just the wind or something," she said the words. The girls continued to search the hospital, their hands sweating and tense. Then Kumi suddenly stopped and whispered, "Hey, I need to go to the bathroom," she whispered. Nami and Keiko, puzzled, searched for the nearest restroom. However, after Kumi went into the restroom, she did not come back. Nami and Keiko became worried and called out into the restroom, but there was no answer. Finally, Keiko gathered her courage and stepped into the bathroom. Kumi is nowhere to be found. The bathroom was a mess, as if it had been ransacked, and only Kumi's amulet lay at her feet. Nami was overcome with despair and burst into tears. "I can't do this anymore. Let's go home," Nami mumbled in a shaking voice as she grabbed Keiko's arm and seemed to disappear. Keiko, too, in a trembling voice, said, "No, we can't. We have to find Kumi. I have to find Kumi." Holding hands tightly, the girls searched the hospital again for Kumi, who had disappeared. After a short walk, I wonder where Kumi went? I spoke to Keiko, making my voice cheerful. But there was no response. Nami felt something strange in her hand. Nami's right hand, which should have been connected to hers, was firmly holding her severed left hand. Panicking, Nami screamed and threw her hand away. She crouched down on the spot and cried loudly. I thought about going home, but I was sure we would both still be at the hospital. But she decided to go deeper into the hospital alone, believing that both of them must surely still be there. At her feet, the air was damp, filled with abandoned examination rooms and wards that looked as if they had been etched with the history of the hospital. Only the sound of her footsteps echoed through the hospital. Nami clutched the flashlight with her own trembling hands as she made her way through the darkness. Her fear mingled with the sadness of losing her friend and became a piercing pain in her chest. Nami stepped into the operating room, which was deep within. At that moment, the air changed and she was enveloped in a heavy atmosphere that clung to her. He could feel the eyes on him. The operating table was still stained with black stains, and old medical instruments were scattered haphazardly about. She quietly looks around the room, trembling with fear but determined to find her friend. Then, suddenly, she feels a gripping sensation on her leg. Nami hurriedly turns the flashlight to her feet. Nami cannot scream, and she stares at it in horror. There was something with a frightening face she had never seen before gripping her leg. Its face was distorted and it seemed to have no eyes. It gripped Nami's leg tightly and tried to pull her closer. Nami tried to pull her leg out with all her strength to get away from it. But the force was so strong that she could not escape. Nami tears up and mutters an apology to her friend. I'm sorry. At that moment, Nami's consciousness fades away. She falls into unconsciousness. The next morning, Nami regains consciousness near the entrance to the abandoned hospital. Her mind was confused and her memory was blurred by fear. However, driven by a sense of mission to find her friends, she steps inside the hospital again. The corridor in front of the operating room in the basement, where no sunlight reached, had exactly the same strange atmosphere as last night. When Nami entered the operating room again, she found Keiko and Kumi there. When the girls found Nami, they cried tears of relief and hugged each other. Relieved, the three of them turned around to go home, and there it was, the one who had been in the operating room last night. Slowly but surely, it approached the three of them. The three could not escape it. The next morning, Nami regained consciousness near the entrance of the abandoned hospital. Her mind was confused and her memory was blurred by fear. However, driven by a sense of duty to find her friends, she once again set foot inside the hospital. The corridor in front of the operating room in the basement, where no sunlight reached, had the exact same strange atmosphere as last night. The screams of Nami, Keiko, and Kumi echoed throughout the hospital. This is a mental hospital, where the three were to spend the rest of their lives, never waking up. Every day, forever, at the same time, they scream and become delirious, and the doctors administer sedatives. Their hands and feet are secured with belts as they run amok. These women's lives come to an end in a dark shadow. The horrific experience left them with lasting scars, memories and experiences that will remain with them for as long as they live.